The assassination of the far-right US commentator Charlie Kirk and the implications of what comes next in the US and beyond represents a truly terrifying and dangerous moment. Now, there were already big questions about whether an already deeply compromised democracy will survive Trumpism, and the possible violence and repression to come are, frankly, truly chilling to think about. Now, anyone who knows anything about me knows I oppose killing anyone in virtually any circumstances, except unavoidable self-defense, whether that be on an individual or a collective level. I watched the video of his assassination, and to be honest, I wish I hadn't. It was horrible to watch. I don't support the death penalty in any circumstances. I certainly don't support it for people with extreme views. So obviously, I wouldn't support individuals assassinating people because of what their extreme views are. I'm not, however, going to frame this as simply having a difference of opinion, as I will explain. Now, at the time I'm speaking, we don't know who killed Charlie Kirk. Maybe that will have changed by the time you listen to this. I'll try and make my comments cover any scenario with that in mind. Now, we know that the two would-be assassins of Donald Trump, Thomas Matthew Crooks and Ryan Wesley Ruth, were not left-wing in any meaningful sense at all. Crooks was a registered Republican. Ruth had voted for Trump in 2016, then ended up backing politicians who belonged to both parties. Luigi Mangione, who allegedly killed the United Healthcare CEO, wasn't left-wing either. He seemed to be some form of slightly eccentric centrist, if you like. Now, this hasn't stopped Trump supporters lying about these acts of violence, however, including Donald Trump himself. Now, if the shooter happens to be someone purporting to have left-wing opinions, then they are completely and utterly insane if they think that this would somehow advance the interests of the left, morality aside. In what scenario would that happen? It simply strengthens the power of the state at the very moment it's under far-right control. It has placed left-wing public figures and activists in great danger. That is obvious. Now, let's listen to this speech from Donald Trump and what it means, and I'll discuss the terrifying avalanche of far-right incitement which we are currently seeing from his leading supporters.
It's a long past time for all Americans and the media to confront the fact that violence and murder are the tragic consequence of demonizing those with whom you disagree day after day, year after year, in the most hateful and despicable way possible. For years, those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis and the world's worst mass murderers and criminals. This kind of rhetoric is directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing in our country today, and it must stop right now. My administration will find each and every one of those who contributed to this atrocity and to other political violence, including the organizations that fund it and support it, as well as those who go after our judges, law enforcement officials, and everyone else who brings order to our country. From the attack on my life in Butler, Pennsylvania last year, which killed a husband and father, to the attacks on ICE agents, to the vicious murder of a healthcare executive in the streets of New York, to the shooting of House Majority Leader Steve Scalise and 3 others, radical left political violence has hurt too many innocent people and taken too many lives.
Firstly, it's interesting that he says that this is the tragic consequence of demonizing those with whom you disagree day after day, year after year, in the most hateful and despicable way possible. The US far right pretended, and I must emphasize this, to be free speech absolutists, ridiculing the idea that incendiary language, hate speech, leads to violence against, say, minorities, like Muslims, refugees, trans people, or indeed leads to violence against the left. The whole idea of hate speech is something that they challenged to their very core. They saw it as, claimed that it was about assaulting free speech. That's what they said. Now, he goes on, Donald Trump, to say that the left demonizes the US right as Nazis and so on. Donald Trump himself has routinely called his opponents Nazis and fascists. He said Joe Biden was running a Gestapo administration, said Joe Biden and the fascists that control him are really the true threat to democracy, called Kamala Harris a fascist. He's repeatedly said that the left are fascists. For example, at a 2023 rally, we pledge to you that we will root out the communists, Marxists, fascists, and the radical left thugs that live like vermin. The use of vermin there, rooting out vermin, when discussing political opponents itself, just reeks of fascism. Trump's former chief of staff, John F. Kelly, said that the president suggested Adolf Hitler did some good things, and that former chief of staff said he meets the definition of a fascist. General Mark Milley, the former chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, said that Trump is a fascist to the core and the most dangerous person in this country. His former communications director, Anthony Scaramucci, said Donald Trump was a full-blown fascist. His former personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, says Trump is the poster boy for fascism. His former Secretary of State, Mark T. Esper, said it's hard to say Trump does not fall into the category of a fascist. None of these people are left-wingers at all. They're the people who worked for Donald Trump. As for Trump, no other president has used the bully pulpit of the White House to incite so much political violence. Political violence at home. Need to be clear about this. US presidents have incited a lot of violence all over the world, but let's talk about the domestic front. Now, of course, there was the January 2021 assault on the Capitol, for example, after he used incendiary language to try and overturn the elections based on the lie that those elections had been rigged. He said back then, we're going to fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. Now, what Trump has done in this latest speech about, of course, this assassination is to erase the far-right and racist violence sweeping the United States. Like that racist terrorist who massacred 9 black worshippers in South Carolina back in 2015. The far-right terrorist who massacred 11 Jews at the Pittsburgh synagogue in 2018. The white supremacist who massacred 10 black people at a supermarket in Buffalo, New York in 2022. The anti-LGBTQ shooter who killed 5 at an LGBTQ nightclub in Colorado Springs in November 2022. There was, of course, the killing of 2 Minnesota Democratic lawmakers by a Trump supporter in June of this year. We could go on. There was no equivalence of scale with violence on the left at all. Just factually false. But what is striking is that Donald Trump said the administration will find anyone who contributed to this crime. It's clear he doesn't mean directly, he means indirectly. Now, opposing, say, Trump's authoritarianism at home or his facilitation of Israel's genocide abroad will face further clampdowns. No doubt about it. Now, as it is, the US is in an authoritarian spiral. The politicization of the civil service, the mass purging of independent government watchdogs, appointing his authoritarian ally Kash Patel as FBI director, taking control of local policing in Washington, D.C. and sending in the National Guard, using troops against protests in Los Angeles, intimidating the media, and of course, clamping down on the pro-Palestinian movement from cutting funding to US universities to attempting to deport pro-Palestinian activists. What on earth is going to happen next? I mean, as it was, they clearly had a plan to escalate. The US right, of course, are complete hypocrites. Take Republican Senator Mike Lee, who condemned Kirk's murder as a cowardly act of violence. When those 2 Minnesota Democrats were killed, he tweeted, "Nightmare on Wall Street," with a picture of the shooter. When Democratic politician Nancy Pelosi's husband was brutally attacked, Trump himself mocked it repeatedly, but at the time said, "We'll stand up to crazy Nancy Pelosi, who ruined San Francisco. How's her husband doing? Anybody know? And she's against building a wall at our border, even though she has a wall around her house, which obviously didn't do a very good job." Republicans like Ted Cruz, Congressman Clay Higgins, right-wing commentator Dinesh D'Souza, and Donald Trump Jr. all mocked that particular hideously violent attack. Now, Charlie Kirk himself calls for a hero to post bail for Paul Pelosi's attacker amidst various conspiracy theories. It is worth just stating what Charlie Kirk thought, his actual opinions. He said, "I think it's worth some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment." But he was there accepting mass violence because of the right to gun ownership, as long as it was other people rather than him being killed. And so many Americans have been killed by gun violence. He called for public executions. He called for the full military occupation of US cities. He backed mass deportations. He supported the lie that Donald Trump had the 2020 election stolen from him. He declared that the racist great replacement theory, that elites are conspiring to destroy white people through immigration, is not a theory, it's a reality. That's a staple of white supremacist conspiracy theories. He declared Islam has conquered Europe, said it doesn't feel right for London and New York City to have Muslim mayors. Islam is a means to the end of destruction of the West. That the UK is a totalitarian third world hellhole. That a Democratic politician was part of an attempt to eliminate the white population in this country. We could go on, all of this radicalizing people in very dangerous ways. And I've gone through examples, of course, of far-right violence. None of this is to justify Charlie Kirk's assassination in any way. It is to rebut claims that he was simply a regular conservative commentator. Whatever that even means anymore. What does that mean? What is that mainstream? conservative commentator. They've either gone over to the far right, or you've got this kind of never Trumper tiny minority, but the vast majority of them just embraced this. He was someone with toxic racist views who openly relished various forms of violence. And condemning this violence, this particular violence, does not mean whitewashing the truth. Now, what is truly disturbing is the open demands of the Trump-supporting far right for violence and the destruction of what democracy the US has. Elon Musk, who has turned X into a cesspit of far-right incitement, tweeted, "If they won't leave us in peace, then our choice is fight or die." Key Trump-supporting account Libs of TikTok tweets, "This is war," in capitals. And that particular account has done so much to radicalize significant numbers of far-right extremists. Laura Loomer, a far-right account closely linked to Trump, tweeted a message to the left: "Debate time is over. You ended it." Matt Walsh, a central figure in the US right, tweets, "I woke up even angrier. I want justice for Charlie. Everyone responsible, everyone celebrating, everyone who encouraged this or fomented it in any way. I want them all held to account. They want us dead. They're killing us. Now is not the time for kumbaya stuff. This is real." Listen to this from Jack Posobiec. I mispronounced his name. I can't remember how to say it. I'm sorry about that. Just let's just keep going. He's a far-right activist, interviewed by the former Trump chief strategist, of course, Steve Bannon.
Charlie Kirk, on one level, is totally irreplaceable. Is it not, Jack Posobiec?
Look, Charlie Kirk is 101. And Charlie Kirk, there's never going to be another Charlie Kirk. But you know what else is going to happen? There's never going to be another assassin to take out someone like the way they did, because of what comes next. And because what comes next will be swift, will be quick, and it will be retribution.
Well, I hardly need to unpack what he said there. This is a truly frightening and dangerous moment. Whatever the flaws of, let's call it, capitalist democracy, weighted as it is in favour of the wealthy and corporate interests, that's clearly in decline across the West. There is a general descent into authoritarianism. The far right is seizing on this particular assassination as an opportunity to do what the far right always wants to do, what it exists to do, to crush their opposition, to unleash hell against minorities. Now, I have to be honest with you. I fear that winter is coming, an icy winter at that. And if we're going to drive back the tide of fascism, we've got to be honest about the threat that we now face. Please like and subscribe, leave your thoughts in your comments. Help us take on the, what even do we say about the mainstream media? Pro-genocide? Increasingly pandering to fascism. We could go on. You can help us at patreon.com/7jones84. Two quick things. Firstly, I've been abroad in Palestine for the last 10 days. That's why there's not been videos. So now we're going to try and get the videos up as best we can. I've got a video about Palestine coming up. So do look in terms of filming there. So wait for that. And I should also say that I'm still writing this book, The Fall of the West, but I'm coming to the end of that. But I'll do my best. We'll do our best, to keep as many videos as we can. But as soon as I finish that book, I can actually focus on this. So bear with us, because I think it's important to keep speaking out as best as possible in these horrifying and scary times. So yeah, share the video, leave your comments, like, subscribe. I'll see you in a bit.